episode of Hidden Treasures. This episode, Allan Barry Laboucan of the Allan Barry Reports and Ewan Downie, President and CEO of Premier Gold Mines. Premier trades as PG on the Toronto Stock Exchange. Without further ado, Allan Barry Laboucan.
Everybody, and thank you for joining me today. It's Allan Barry Laboucan from the Allan Barry Reports. I've got a special guest today in Ewan Downie. Ewan runs Premier Gold. Premier Gold is a company I've followed since they actually went public, and they've grown from an exploration company to a producer. I think they are one of the good candidates for up-and-coming middle-tier kind of gold companies. What I like about the company especially is Ewan has surrounded himself with good mining people. He's got the good background in exploration, and that together makes a good team. So they buy assets well, they buy them at reasonable prices, and then they can usually enhance them with the drill rig. And I think that's a great business model, and I'm happy to have Ewan Downie on. Thanks for joining me, Ewan.
Thanks for having me on again, Al.
Yeah. So let's get right to it, Ewan. I know you're a busy guy. Why don't you give everybody the sort of overview from of Ewan, and then we'll chat a little more about some specifics.
Obviously, we're seeing a bit of a different world here of late, with everybody working from home, mines shutting down. We've been one of the companies affected by that. Our Mexican mine is currently closed. We're under care and maintenance while we wait for the Mexican government to allow us to go back to operations. But however, our other operation is in Nevada, and Nevada is still business as usual. So the mine's operating. We're going to be putting out our quarter here in the next couple of days. And I'd say our mine in Mexico was affected particularly in March by absenteeism, etc. But the Nevada operation had a really strong first quarter for the company. Premier is a company that has multiple assets. We have the two producing projects. However, we also have 4 additional projects that are currently permitted for either advanced exploration, which would include underground declines, and or production. So we have a number of projects as you said, that provide us the opportunity to grow from small producer to what we feel will be in the future a mid-tier producer with a very low cost profile.
You know, and you just hit on 2 things that that really I think are compelling reasons for people to look at Premier Gold. One is that Ewan, if I'm looking at getting into investing in gold and I want to look at something, I don't necessarily want to look at the big producers because there's not really that much great growth in those. It's those middle tiers that have been sort of decimated over the last 20 years through the 2001, 2011 bull market. I think that gives some phenomenal opportunities from a market perspective because you have a small audience, but then from running the company perspective, in that you have great opportunities that the majors, the really big companies can't really look at.
Yeah, and I think we've really focused on safe, favorable mining jurisdictions. We're 100% North American. Most of our projects are in Canada and Nevada, USA. And then also we were in Sonora, Mexico, as I mentioned earlier. But really, we've taken a portfolio approach where we feel we can provide significantly greater growth profile than I think you'll find almost anywhere in the industry. Our project in Geraldton, the Greenstone Gold Mines, or the Hard Rock project, is in all categories, has well over 10 million ounces of gold. It's permitted, sits right on the highway. We have to move the highway and the hydro line for the project. So it's blessed with infrastructure, blessed with grade, and now it has its permits, though we are having a bit of a challenge recently with our partner awaiting when we'll make a construction decision. And as you probably saw a week or so ago, we announced that we had advanced with another party to acquire or attempted to acquire our partner's interest, but they refused our offer.
So, I understand it's in court and everything like that, and I don't want to put you on any sort of legal jeopardy or anything like that. But so I'll try to be as sensitive as I can about it. I guess that sort of lines up where you guys are in that situation. You're going through court. You've also made an offer. They've refused it. I guess we just wait and watch from here.
Yeah, I think for us, the government or the Ontario court case won't be heard right now until October, and we felt that it wasn't in our best interest just to sit and wait for the court case to happen. And if our partner genuinely had any concerns about the project, then they should be willing to sell, was our view. So we had a few other parties that have approached us about the property over the past year or so, and one of those we've been working with more closely and decided that they would like to be involved in the project. Therefore, we made an offer. We said, if you do have an issue, here's your opportunity to monetize and move on. And obviously, they felt that the project is of considerable merit by the fact that they didn't counter anything. They just said told us they didn't want to sell the project. So I think what it did do is really demonstrate to the market that the project has considerable value. The offer was essentially for our market cap to buy the other half. And Premier has that project. We have the 2 operating mines, and we have additional projects in Canada, in the Red Lake camp, and in Nevada with Cove, which is a 1.6 million ounce deposit. So I think it really helped once again maybe take some of the shadow off the property. And now for us,
because that's probably what happened to you, and when you and there was a kind of a confluence of bad timing. You had the market, you had COVID, you had a lawsuit, and the market got smacked down, not just for you, the big market in Wall Street. So, but you're coming out on the other end, and Ewan, that's one thing I've always noticed about Premier Gold. Whether it's a bad market or a good market, you tend to outperform. On the down markets, you tend to not get beat up as badly. On the good markets, you seem to enjoy the ride a little bit more than most. And I think that that's important for investors to pay attention to as well. The thing you brought up earlier, Ewan, that I think is something that I hope more in the industry stress in the future, and that's the importance of low cost. It's not just about growing for the sake of growth. It's about low cost operations so you can make money. Maybe you want to enlighten us a little more on, your feelings on low cost and the operations you look for.
Well, typically it's grade. Grade is, as they say, grade is king, and our Hard Rock project is in those type of large scale open pit mines would be very similar to the Canadian Malartic project, which has been a great success in Canada. A slightly higher grade based on our last resource. So we expect that Hard Rock will be one of the premier operations in North America once it's up and running. Our project in Nevada, we're mining anywhere between 8 and 11 grams underground. It's processed at Barrick's, or now Nevada Gold Mines, Gold Strike facility. So it's been a low-cost operation for us to start. All-in sustaining costs will be well under $1,000 US. So though it's a small underground mine, it's going to generate significant cash for our company, especially at current gold prices. We were permitted to build 2 additional pits on that property and a heap leach. And the upside of South Arturo, in my opinion, is one of the top prospects in our portfolio is building resources there. And we had a great season, I'd say, in terms of drilling at South Arturo in 2019. We were stripping one of the 2 pits to start up the next operation. And the drill program is suggesting that the other pit, which was supposed to be next, may actually be the better one. So we stopped stripping, and we had, not for sure, we're still discussing what the path forward is, but now we're looking at all of our various options we have there and a path to go forward. So that's viewed as low cost. I think one of the things that's hurt our share price the last couple of years, though, is Mexico. The Mexican mine we have, especially in 2019, was fairly high cost. So it hurt our share price, I think, during the year. One good thing about this COVID break is it does allow us to sort of maybe reset in Mexico, because the new deposit we developed, Aluvio, is mining out significantly lower grade than was first anticipated. A lot of dilution, a lot of faulting that's resulted in the ore body being chopped up. So when we get going, we're probably going to put development into the new Lupita area, and Lupita's grades are significantly higher. So it'll allow us to sort of recheck the mine and get it on a better footing going forward. And maybe instead of ramping up in this full production, we'll slowly ramp into it when we get the permission to go back. So, however, our other projects that we have, for example, Cove, which currently is idle, we're permitted to go underground, but it's an idle project because we can't do everything. Is for a plus 1 million ounce gold deposit in the U.S. I believe it's the highest grade undeveloped plus 1 million ounce gold deposit right now in the U.S. with a grade of over 11 grams per ton and significant upside and resource upside. We're currently sitting at over 1.6 million ounces, but we believe an excellent opportunity to be well over 2 in the existing deposit, and new discoveries and new targets we've identified proximal to the main deposit. We hope yield some sources.
You know, as you were explaining all that, Ewan, it just goes back to what I, sort of started the show at, buying good assets, using the drill rig to enhance those assets. You've done that, at Cove, at Arturo, and it looks like, I could tell from the way you're describing it, you're really excited about Hard Rock as well. I mean, analogies to Canadian Malartic are, that doesn't go without notice. Canadian Malartic is a big time operation, a gold operation in Quebec, and I think that's what that one looks like, and I'm hoping we see some more stuff. But it just goes to show you the portfolio business model you have, that you're not living and dying by that one project. You've got all this other stuff on the go, and they all fall into that same category: good quality and the potential to grow more with the drill rig.
Yeah, and given our permitting, advanced permitting stage, we have a lot of options at how we're going to grow into the future. We're strong financially with our financing we completed earlier this year. Canadian dollars, we probably have a treasury well over 80 million in cash. So we've got a good position to ride out, even if this downturn is a bit longer than we hope for. And once we get up and running, we're still generating cash from South Arturo, and our balance sheet's in a good shape to continue to grow our development pipeline.
Yeah, I mean, that makes a good case in case you're on the defense, but Ewan, I'm seeing some things that, and I think you've done a great job there to overview and explain everything going on with Premier, but I'm seeing some things in the market, Ewan, that I think could also have a big impact on the gold price and a company like a Premier. Before we get into that, though, I was going to say, on the COVID situation and how the reactions to that, down here in Mexico, I live in the state of Zacatecas, and there's been right after they made the decision to shut down everything except essential services here in Mexico, the Zacatecas Mining Association has 10,000 families that are affected by that. And so immediately they were on the phone to AMLO, and I don't think it's going to take a whole lot of time here in Mexico for this to get resolved. I mean, we're in the mining business. People are all over the place. It's not like you're congregating in an office building or something like that. And I think if you take sound measures, everything should be fine. So I think things will turn around fairly quickly in Mexico. And these COVID and these viruses, they tend to run their cycle as well. So I don't think we're going to be looking at a year-round flu, a year-round bug here.
I agree with you there.
Yeah. So let's get into gold a little, Ewan. You're one of my favorite gold people. We get derided as gold bugs sometimes, but I think the rest of the market's going to get a little gold buggy here pretty soon, or already is. I mean, I saw something recently that I don't think I've ever seen in my career, Ewan, was the gold futures were $30 or $40 above the gold spot price.
I think it was 70 today.
Was it today, 70? I haven't really looked at the market closely. So, usually the real gold bugs, the conspiracy guys, they're always talking about how that paper market is pushing down the price of gold. And now it's actually pulling up the price of gold. And I think we've got some exciting times ahead of us, you and I. I don't think I've ever seen in my career a more of a perfect storm developing for the price of gold. Why don't you shine a little light on us of how you feel about that and how that impacts Premier?
Well, I'd say, this is unprecedented. We haven't seen, I think, ever, just every government essentially across the planet shut everything down. And I think, especially if you look at the Western markets, that the U.S. companies were living on debt. The cheap debt that the government's putting out is their balance sheets are not in good shape. And these are companies trading at multiples of billions above any mining company. You look at a company like American Airlines, they're buying back stock, they're paying dividends. And less than 2 weeks into this, they're asking for bailouts. So obviously, they weren't in a position to be paying dividends or buying stock. It was using government money to do it. So maybe an inflated market was in place, and a real debt bubble that was brought to light by this, but was going to come anyway. So I think it's kind of a perfect storm. Now the governments are giving out free money. How are they going to deal with that? So I think the prospects for gold right now have never been better, like you said. And with the spread you see in the futures, or just go on the U.S. Mint website and try to buy a gold coin, I think it's $2,200 an ounce. So that's an even bigger spread than what you see against the futures market is the real price of buying gold. So, I think there's a potential here that this ability to leverage off gold, and companies have been using this for years. Now if they have to cover those positions with physical, there's just not enough physical out there. So it's a great environment, I think, for gold, and that will translate into the mining companies like ours. The profitability of your ounces in the ground will just get greater and greater.
Well, I don't think the Fed and the banksters and the government can. They kind of painted themselves into a corner that they can never get out of. The economy is supposed to be growing in the United States at the best clip prior to this COVID thing, and yet they need near zero interest rates, effectively zero if you factor in inflation, or negative if you factor in inflation, just to keep the balls in the air. What I think, we've kind of needed a reset for a long time where I've seen for a lot of my life in the business that kind of old-fashioned economics, if you will, kind of went out the window. And, I think that might come back into vogue. And if it comes back into vogue, I think gold is going to have a phenomenal time. And another thing I think that is important to point out, and we can leave it on this, Ewan, if you could just give me a little insight. I really see like not a lot of companies that I call quality, uh, that for gold, if a new audience comes flying in, like say your company, for example, in the future middle tier kind of scenario, how many companies are really in that category for investors to look at? Even in exploration, how many real serious exploration, there's a lot of exploration companies out there, but how many of them are busy with the drill rig, always doing something? There's just a small menu as far as I can see, and you're sort of at the top of the menu in your category.
Yeah, thanks for pointing that out. That's how we feel, and sometimes we get criticized for our portfolio approach. But when you look at Torex right now, I like Torex. They've got a great mine in Mexico, but they've got one project, and now it's shut down. If this were to be an extended shutdown, then really they have nothing until they're allowed to start again. So that's why we've always gone towards the portfolio approach. Right now, we have two mines, one's operating, one's not. So we do get the benefit from one still operating, and hopefully in the future we'll have 3 and 4 going, and that will give us a lot of flexibility if this were to happen again. Let's say next fall that this spikes up again, and we don't have a good vaccine for it, then we may see this all over again. So having the multiple operations, I think, is key for any company. And I think some of the single asset companies will start to look at themselves and think that maybe I need a bit more than just one operation coming out of this. So I think we've taken care of that before this happened.
Yeah, you're in the hockey analogy. You got a good defense, and that's can make for a good offense too, Ewan. Thank you very much for joining me today. I think very highly of Premier Gold and Ewan and his team, the quality of their projects, the valuation, and where they sort of fit into the overall market. As always, before making any investment decisions, it's important for you to speak with your financial advisors and do your homework. I can't stress the do your homework part enough. And I think as you do more homework on someone like Premier, you'll understand why I like the company so much. On that note, everybody have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.